Slow carb diet versus intermittent fasting with keto. Truth is, I've done both and tracked everything in extreme detail. Question is, which one is right for you? Welcome to Get It Together, and if you're new here, this channel is just me trying to figure out how to get my life together and sharing the tips and lessons I learned along the way. And as you heard from the intro, I've done both the slow carb diet as well as keto plus IF, and I'm going to break down the key differences between the two in terms of the experience of it to arm you with as much information as you can have if you happen to be considering which one to pursue. Now, my very first series on this channel, playlist right over here, is a really detailed deep dive into the slow carb diet and tracking my entire progress over the course of the month, where I ultimately lost nearly 22 pounds. So why is it that I've switched over to keto and IF? In a later video, I'm definitely going to get into the reasons why I'm switching, but for all intents and purposes, this video has 5 distinct sections. All 5 sections, again, are based on the experiential differences between slow carb diet and keto plus IF. So the 5 experiential differences we're going to explore in this video are: number 1, the goal of going on the diet; number 2, the ease of execution based on your own self-awareness and habits; number 3, the different trade-offs between the two; number 4, the things that you're going to have to really focus on to keep track of; and number 5, the level of effectiveness, at least for me personally, based on my very detailed tracking of a month on each. Let's jump in. What is the goal of you going on a diet, period? I think for most people it's weight loss, fat loss. But if you're like me and you went to a doctor, which I highly recommend you do, and you're diagnosed with insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, or escalated up to type 2 diabetes, then the choice is really simple. Clean keto combined with intermittent fasting is unequivocally your choice. You don't even have to watch the rest of this video. But let's dive into probably the majority of you guys who are thinking primarily about losing weight, losing fat. I think the question that you have to ask yourself is, do I have a very specific event that I'm trying to lose weight for? Or do I want to make a serious lifestyle change and a commitment? Now, I'm not saying that one or the other is better or worse for a true lifestyle change. But what I am saying is that the slow carb diet enables you to have one cheat day a week, which for some of you may be absolutely critical to be able to keep your social life going, and on the surface will absolutely seem significantly more sustainable. This bleeds into experiential difference number 2 that we're going to be talking about, which is the ease of execution based on your own self-awareness and your habits throughout your life. I think that most of you will agree that the slow carb diet seems like it'll be a lot easier to execute, simply because at worst you just have to fight all your urges for 6 days, and then on day 7 you get to have your cheat day. On the flip side, what makes the ketogenic diet combined with intermittent fasting seem even more difficult is because having such a tight, restricted window of eating. For me, it's 20 hours of fasting and 4 hours of eating. Seemed literally impossible to me before I actually tried it. That said, as messed up as it sounds coming out of my face, I feel like had I not been diagnosed as dangerously pre-diabetic, there's no way in hell I would even consider trying keto combined with IF. But having done an entire strict month on the slow carb diet, and now just finishing my first of 2 strict months on keto combined with IF, I genuinely feel that for me personally, the ketogenic diet is actually easier than the slow carb diet, specifically because there is no cheat day. For me personally, this whole idea of a cheat day, this whole idea of using food as an ultimate reward system, creates 2 things that, based on my self-awareness and my habits, is actually not the best thing. First of all, from the moment cheat day ends until the next cheat day, those next 6 days, I still frequently thought about what I planned on eating on cheat day. Number 2 is that sugar is a real addiction. But what's amazing about this particular addiction after this kind of past 30 days on the strict keto and IF plan is that I legitimately do not crave sweet things anymore in such a short amount of time. But to tie this experiential difference out, really I think the questions that you need to ask yourself are, 1, am I tremendously social on the weekends? And if so, then I would definitely recommend the slow carb diet, because a huge part of diet success is maintaining a certain level of happiness in general in life. And if you're not going to be happy because you can't have that cheat day, then it's a lot better, in my opinion, to pursue the slow carb diet. The second question to ask, based on self-awareness and your own habits, is, do I feel I have a sugar addiction and do I actually want to take myself off of that? Or do I feel like, why deprive? Like, we only have one life. Why not have sugar once in a while? Simply asking yourself these 2 questions will help you decide which route is best for you to start thinking about. Experiential difference number 3 we're going to go into are the trade-offs with each. When it comes to the trade-offs, I would say that really the biggest difference maker for me is understanding my own general cravings and seeing how they're affected. What I mean by this is that with a slow carb diet, I'm trading off like a tremendous amount of restriction for 6 days and then being able to go complete beached whale on the last day of the week. That tremendous level of restriction throughout those 6 days is something that you may or may not be able to tolerate based on your cravings. Now, the trade-off for the ketogenic diet is that I don't have any cheat days. There's 0 cheat days. But what I realized after doing that whole month very strictly on the slow carb diet was that my primary cravings were candies and cheese, those were the things that I craved the most in those 6 strict days of the slow carb diet. And so what the ketogenic diet allows me to do is, instead of suffering for 6 days and then just binging like crazy on the last, it allows me to hit those intense cravings I have every single day. Cheese is absolutely allowed on the ketogenic diet. And when it comes to candies, this one's kind of like not one-to-one exactly, but on keto, you are absolutely allowed to have a moderate amount of blackberries and raspberries, a smaller amount of strawberries, and a tiny amount of blueberries. And so even though they're not actually candy, every single day I'm allowed to have a handful of blackberries or raspberries, which are my go-to. Ultimately, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. Again, this goes back to the previous point of just having self-awareness and recognizing your own habits, your own cravings, your own desires. The fourth experiential difference that we're going to be diving into between the slow carb diet and the keto IF diet are the vital things that you need to keep track of. Now, what I love about both of these diets is that you really do not have to count calories at all. That's a simplistic view, of course. I mean, calories technically matter. But fact, calories in, calories out is not an accurate marker of how successful you're going to be when it comes to weight and fat loss. When it comes to slow carb diet, really the only 2 things you have to keep track of are, number 1, the foods that are allowed. As long as you're hitting all of the foods that are on the allowed list, you're compliant. And then the second thing you have to pay attention to are cheat day rules. Speaking of these important cheat day rules, link the video right up here where I do a deep dive into everything about the cheat day rules. And also, in the link in the description below, I have a free 100% no strings attached cheat sheet that you can download, print out, save on your phone, whatever. When it comes specifically to clean keto and intermittent fasting, what you have to track, I would say, is definitely more involved. First of all, you have to track your macros. How many grams of fat, protein, and net carbohydrates you're consuming every single day. Again, we're not counting calories. The macros are what we're paying attention to. But then tacking on top of that, when I say clean keto, I also mean that we're keeping track to a certain degree of the micronutrients that we're getting. Really important are things like potassium and B vitamins, other vitamins and minerals. The other thing that you need to pay attention on keto combined with intermittent fasting is, of course, making sure that you're eating inside of whatever restrictive window that you've put yourself in. I really dove extremely deep into research, and through a crap ton of research, the most effective for both fat loss as well as health improvement is if you fast for at least 18 hours a day. Spoiler alert for an upcoming video, it's not like you can't consume anything in those 18 hours. I'm going to make an entire video on keto and fasting compliant drinks. And those drinks, at least for me, have made me completely satisfied inside of those 18 plus hours that I'm not eating. And let's dive into the 5th and last experiential difference, and that's just straight up effectiveness. How effective has the slow carb diet been for me, and how effective has keto with intermittent fasting been for me? Effectiveness, of course, ultimately is the most important thing for us, specifically because as we see results, the more motivated we get. But effectiveness goes slightly beyond that, and one of my most favorite things that I heard Tim Ferriss ever say is the concept of adherence. Adherence meaning how able you are to actually stick with the plan long term. His belief, and I don't dispute it, is that the slow carb diet is just easier for most people to stick long term, specifically because of that allotted cheat day. But after having my health diagnosis scare and really going through a full month on keto and IF, for me personally, it's just as easy, if not easier, to stick with long term. But it requires that psychological shift to really flip on that light switch and say, this is a completely new lifestyle choice for me. But let's look at the actual numbers. Now, when it comes to the results after my first very strict month on the ketogenic diet combined with intermittent fasting, I have to say that I'm absolutely blown away by the results. For me personally, again, everyone's body is different, but I'm gonna toss up the numbers right now, which compare pound for pound, body fat percentage for body fat percentage, the differences in my results with both the first month on the slow carb diet and my first month on keto plus IF. So based on these 5 experiential differences that we talked about, my recommendation for you is to really do an audit for yourself. Think about all of these different points and really exercise self-awareness and understanding your own habits. Based on that, you can decide which one will at least give you a better shot of sticking through with it. Once you've made your decision, the core tip that I can offer is to really understand all of the rules, plan ahead, and really follow those rules with 100% strict compliance for 2 weeks. You'll be able to get really clear indication in 2 weeks whether or not you feel it's effective for you. I realized, by the way, that for this entire video, I've been going against one of my core discoveries, and that's where I keep talking about weight loss. Weight is just not a good and accurate metric to be tracking, but it's just something that we're so easily anchored to. And so what I recommend, what I believe is one of the most important videos I've ever made, which I'll link right up here right now, are objectively and scientifically the most important metrics to actually be tracking when you go on a diet. If you've been with me for a minute, you'll know that I need your help to help stay accountable, and so I do a financial loss incentive for myself. Basically, every single day on my Instagram, I have to post my meals as well as a tip or a lesson. If I fail to do so, the first person that calls me out, gets 200. If you got value out of this video, please do hit like and subscribe. Make sure to comment any questions that you have, and I'll see you guys in the next one.